Okay, so a customer class, let me just go back up here and I'm going to do what I said I wasn't going to do, and I'm just going to do some properties. And I want to say something like first name. I'm just going to abbreviate it. Last name. And we're going to say address. And we're going to say phone. Okay, and well, we'll leave it at that. Okay, well, this one, when we say methods, we may just have getter and setter methods, and I think you may have had that in your book. So we'd have like a get first name, or it could even be get name. Let's do this. Get name. Set name. Okay, so what happens is somebody inputs a name. Uh, that would set the name, and that would set it to the internal variables in the customer class. Getting the name would return that person's name from the class so that the programmer could use it. Okay, so what we're talking about with a container class is it's a class that pretty much holds data but does very little manipulation of that data. It doesn't have a lot of logic in it or something like that. And the whole idea with that is I can take one of those classes like customer, and I could populate I could create an instance of that class and populate it with a customer. I can create a second instance of that class, and I can populate it with the data for a second customer, and a third instance with another customer, and so on and so on. Well, what I could do is I could actually take all of those objects that I created, and I could put them all into an object array. And then I could work with them individually and say save them out to a database or do some type of data manipulation. And I've got all of the nice data that I need for a particular customer encapsulated in its own little class and lives in its own world, and I can manipulate it along with a bunch of others using something like an array or another class that holds all of these little classes. Okay, so now I can iterate through them that way. So that on the side is what we would consider to be a container class. Okay, any questions on that? I know if you want to do a query on container class or look in your book, you can give some examples. Unfortunately, we're kind of limited on what I can do drawing-wise and whatever through this tool that we have. And it's something really I need to draw out if we could do that. Okay. Um, okay, so I created a database class. How about an error handling class? We will talk a little bit about error handling in this class. We don't go into it in a lot of detail because error handling in itself can be a class or two. It's a very, very complex subject. Um, and we will do some very basic try, throw, and catch stuff in this class, but we're not going to go into the really, really gory details of it. Okay. Um, all right. So now what I've done is, I've come up with a list of classes. Okay. So that's a good start. I've got a few properties. I've got a few methods. So let's go ahead and
Welcome to any meeting. Your line is unmuted.
okay, can everybody hear me again? My browser crashed here, and I had to. Okay, all right. Sounds like you can hear me. So now I noticed a comment that that it was confusing because you were having to write about stuff you don't know anything about yet. Well, the beauty of this is you really don't have to write any code for this for your blueprint, because all you're doing is thinking about, okay, what are the types of things that this thing needs to do. Okay. So now let's go ahead and let's look at something in detail. Okay. Um, what is our program going to do? Okay, so what I can do is I can go to a next level here, and I can start working at a level of detail that will allow me to do some stepwise refinement. So what I can do is I can start thinking, okay, I've got all these classes. How do they all hook together? All right, so let's do this. Let me say, without writing any code, I can say somebody is going to have to. Okay, I'm getting some beeping and booping noises here. I'm trying to make sure that nobody doesn't have a question. Okay, yeah, some people can't see my screen. Okay, so the sharing must have stopped. Let me do that again. Oh, this is interesting. When I came back in, and it won't let me share my screen because it brought me back in as a not as the presenter anymore, but as a just a regular old person here. So give me a second here so I can come back in. Hang on, and I am going to log out and log back in and try it again. That's kind of annoying. All right. Okay, it looks like
Welcome to AnyMeeting. Your line is unmuted.
Okay,
Okay,
can everybody see my
can
screen
everybody
now?
see my screen now?
Okay, I just shared it, and it says it's being shared. All right, let me try it again. Okay, how about now? Okay, good. Now we can see it. All right, so let's go back and look at kind of phase 2 of what I'm doing here. Okay, so as an example, we're going to say, let's talk about the general flow of what your program is going to be without writing any code. Okay, so for my typical, for something typical like this one, we can say one of the first things that has to happen, excuse me, is the employee logs in. Okay, then we can say employee read schedule. Let's say schedules client. Okay, employee will order inventory. Employee will, let's say, let's see, do the checkout. And we'll say we have a bunch of these. Okay, so these are actions that the employee would take using this system. Okay, there may be many more that I haven't talked about yet. Okay, each one of these we would call a use case. Okay, so as you're writing your program, or writing your blueprint, I should say, what you're going to be doing things like I'm doing here. It's almost like a brainstorming session. Okay, here's all my classes that I think I need, and here's all the properties and methods. How is this thing going to be used? Could be a bunch of different things here that I'm not thinking about, but let's keep it simple so that we don't spend all of our time on one thing and skip something else. Okay, so does everybody understand the whole idea of a use case? What I'm really saying is, how are we going to use this thing? and you could actually look that term up on the internet. You would actually see an example of what a real use case diagram would look like. Again, I don't expect a real use case diagram. I just expect you to be showing me that you've thought out your logic. And what this is going to do is it's going to make it a whole lot easier when you write your code, because you're writing your code without actually writing any code. Okay? So you don't get caught in logical loops and all kinds of weird problems that you get into if you just start writing code like you were writing a novel. All right? So is everybody good with this? Before I continue, at least one person answer.
Mine doesn't look nothing like that.
Well, again, it doesn't have to look like this. I'm showing you what the process would be.
I think I'm way off in that field somewhere.
Okay.
I'm completely lost.
All right. So what are you lost about? Is it something?
I did more of a flow chart. I didn't
No.
even.
Well, no. That's absolutely fine. So you're getting there. See, what I'm coming to is at some point here I was about to talk about a flow chart. So you're there. It's just I'm showing you some other pieces that you could put in there to make it easier for you, because we're talking about, like, especially if it's going to be your final project, there's still a lot of time you have to think about that, and typically your blueprint is something that you're probably going to change during the process, because you'll figure out that maybe you didn't do some things right the first time. Okay. All right. So yes, yeah. I mean, I'm showing you one way of doing it. There are literally hundreds of ways of doing this. There are different ways of doing systems analysis. They can be done in different models, like a spiral model, or an agile model, or a personal software process model, etc., etc. But what I'm doing is I'm showing you an approach that I might take, because we're just talking, like I say, just about general blueprinting. We're not talking about using an official software engineering model here. That's way beyond this class. Okay. So this is one way to look at it. Here's all my classes. Here's how my program is going to be used. And we could add more to that as well. Okay. So what I might do, all right, is I might then say, okay, I've done all my use cases, and there are probably a whole lot more that I haven't written here. And I'm going to pick one of them. I might say employee logs in. And I might say, okay, what happens when an employee logs in? Well, the employee logs in, log in, and this could be done as a flow chart. Okay, log in, success, show first screen. Whatever the first screen is going to be. Okay, maybe it's a scheduling screen or something. Who knows? Okay, so we could say log in, failure, show error screen. Okay, and we could say ask employee to try again. Okay, so you see what I'm doing here is I'm building a picture of what my program is going to look like and how the logic's going to flow, and I'm doing it in very, very basic elements at this point. All right.